And finally, we have reached the pain management technique. Before we start on the technique, I would like to emphasize that this is a technique meant for dealing with neuropathic pain, the illogical pain that has no obvious cause. So if you are dealing with physical pain that has an external cause, you of course will have to deal with that accordingly. The second thing I would like to emphasize is that this method, this technique, are useful for all the spectrum of different sensations. All the things that are illogical, unpleasant. It can also be used on mental states or thoughts, situations. Every time you feel that something is just happening to you and you don't like it. It might be how you're thinking, how you're responding to stress, how you're responding to different sensations or uncomfort due to your disease. This is a method that can be used. And for me, I think that one of the reasons that this is working so good for me is that I really know that it works. And the reason I know it works is because I started using the process on smaller things, minor things, on the small different sensation, on the stress response, on things that wasn't that overwhelming that neuropathic pain can be. And there is one really important thing that I have experienced during the almost 15 years I've been using this technique. And that is that when you are hit by a cold or getting an infection, getting fever or something that's dragging you extra way down in addition to your chronic disease, it is so hard to use the technique. And it would be impossible to learn it, to start using the technique when you are really under attack. You need to learn the technique, start priming your brain to make this a new default way to handle things, so that when you get an infection or fever or something, you have the technique, you have the skills, you have the default option that this is the way to deal with it. Because if you are struck by neuropathic pain on top of a cold or fever or an infection, which is very likely to happen, right, when you are really under stress, then it's really hard to use the technique even though you know it. So please, when you are starting to do this, don't think that, oh yeah, but this isn't such a big problem now, so we'll just postpone it. Don't postpone it. Learn the technique now, use it for all the small things, and when the big things come, because they probably will, then you have the toolkit, you have the technique, you know what to do. Okay, please do that, because everything is so much easier if you already can do it. And just to use a metaphor of exercise, I did martial art training for 15 years, and when we had these graduations, the examinations, we were supposed to do a lot of push-ups in front of the examiner. You can't do 50 push-ups when you are under stress if you haven't practiced before, right? You can't start running a marathon if you have never run a mile before. You need to start practicing, acquiring the skills, and be able to do this when you really need it. There is a saying in the American military that is, you don't raise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your training. And that is really true when it comes to mastering this skill, this technique of pain management. Okay, so now I will tell you the two main elements of how I do the technique and how it's working. I was talking a little bit of language in the last video, and the language, the word you are using, they are essential for the outcome. You need to spend time and work on the description of what you want. This is about shifting your focus. This is about getting the focus away from the pain that is sort of overwhelming, right? And moving the focus over to peace, the comfort, the normal sensations, the quietness, the softness, the love, whatever describes what you want to have instead of the pain. And you need to work on the words. And if you can get a sort of a script in the beginning, then you can start developing that depending on the situation. So the words, how you use your language, is essential to succeed. And then there is the second thing, and that is connected to your body. You need to make some sort of a physical statement, some sort of movement, some sort of things that are going into the kinesthetic part of you, that is actually physical, to make a sort of announcement to the pain that this is not acceptable. I will not have this. And when I learned this technique back in 2009, we were encouraged to find some sort of physical movement that would indicate that we want to stop the pain or the discomfort. And I started with like this. I really don't want to have this, right? But it turns out that when you have to do this technique, sometimes several times a minute, when it's really intense, you can't go on like this. It's getting too massive, right? So I changed my physical statement to be like this. I know this can sound quite confusing, but I will give you some examples and some step-by-step explanations for how I have developed this technique for pain management. So the foundation for this pain management technique is two things. It's your language, the words you are using, and it's your physical appearance, what you do with your body. Because there is something that is called body cognition. And everyone knows that if you're very stressed or anxious or nervous for something, you will see it in your body, you will feel it in your stomach, like this, you know. But the opposite of this is body cognition. That is that you can influence your mental state by how you are holding your body. So if you lift your shoulders, you straighten up, widen your legs, widen your arms, and you're like, yes, I am on top of the world. And this is so very hard when the pain is hitting you. But it's also very necessary, because the times when I experience struggle with getting the effect of the technique, that is when I am so overwhelmed with pain that I'm turning to be angry and desperate, and I don't know, no, please, I can't stand this. And then my physical state is turning downwards in a downward spiral, and I get more angry, more sad, more desperate, and this won't work. So the first thing I need to do is to stop both physical and also emotional, and change my state to optimism, to happiness and smiling. That is really hard, I assure you, but that is necessary to make it work fast. Because what we are talking about is break state. You need to break the physical and mental state you are in and go into another state that makes you available for the positive effect of the technique. And if you think that break state sounds like a very difficult thing, it actually is not, because you probably do it all the time. One example of a break state is if you're sitting on your couch and you remember suddenly that, oh, I need to make an appointment with my dentist. And then you get up from your couch and go to get your mobile phone. And in the moment you pick up your phone, you have totally forgotten what you were supposed to do with it. You've been there, right? Because this is a break state. You are changing your physical appearance, and the thoughts that were following you when you were sitting on the couch, they have disappeared when you are started to walk. And this is the basic for using this technique, doing the physical thing, whatever you do to make your body change the state it was in when it was in pain. So using this body cognition, using the break state technique, are the physical fundamentals for making your body able to follow a new path in your brain. So to give you a practical example of how I do this, when I'm in pain, when I'm in neuropathic pain, I need to use the technique. The physical elements I do can range from getting up, walking, going to another place, doing something completely different, if it's really hard to get the change, or when I've done it a lot of times and I really have made a new path, I just need this short physical statement to remind my body, oh yeah, we're going there now. So the most easy thing I do when I get struck by neuropathic pain is that I just stop. Or I say, stop, quit the rush. I sort of talk to myself, talk to my subconscious to tell them that, oh no, won't have any of this. And to get the best effect out of it, I really try to smile while I'm visualizing and talking the right word, using the right language to describe what I want. Because you can't describe that I want calm, smooth, soft, perfect while you are angry. Right? You need to smile, you need to close your eyes, you need to go into a tiny bit of meditative state to just tell yourself what you want, what you need. And then you need to smile, internal smile, right? So this is what is working for me on a general basis, most of the time. But you don't get to that point right in the beginning. You have to do some practice. You have to start using this method, this technique, describing, use your own language to establish the new path, the new off-piste in your brain, right? So where do you start? We need to access your subconscious, the placebo effect, like we talked about in the last video. And this is about you talking to yourself. Where I started in the beginning when I was developing this technique was that I was imagining myself talking to myself, that I was talking to my subconscious, or the other way around. I was getting my subconscious to talk back to me like it was a friend or someone who was supposed to help me. So that could be something like this. I have this pain, I don't know what to do. And then my subconscious would say, what do you want instead of pain? You get the point? So I would make this conversation where I start using a positive language, a wishful language, a descriptive language to paint a picture and make an emotional impact in my brain for what I did want instead of the pain. So in the beginning, you might have to do this many times, very often, but when you start describing what you want, it will probably work for you in almost every setting. All kind of discomfort or unpleasant feeling or pain or whatever your central nervous system is throwing at you. Because the opposite of pain will normally be soft, smooth, comfortable. These are at least the words I use. So find a basic script that you use every time, and the more consistent you are able to be, the faster it will work. Because if you ignore it and let the pain take over, that is the same thing as going in the old path. You need to let it snow, you need to go off-piste, and the more you go in the new path, the stronger that will be, and that will eventually be the fastest and the easiest track for you to go. So if you now are jumping right to this video, you probably won't know the metaphor I'm using, so you need to go back to the previous videos to understand. If you want to fast forward in being able to use the technique, I recommend that you practice on the minor things. For example, if your chin is starting to itch, use the technique. That's not a big deal. You can live very well with the itchy and you just scratch it, but you don't have to do that. You can focus all your energy on the opposite side, because that is one of the things that make it work for me. I focus on the parallel side of my body that is not in pain. If this hand is exploding, I focus all my energy. I breathe. This is how a good hand is feeling. This is how a hand should work, right? So I ignore the exploding hand and focus on this hand. In the same way, as I told you, when I have tinnitus in my right ear, focus all my energy I breathe calm, quiet, white cotton into my left ear. I visualize, I focus all my energy here, and then it works like that. So if you're itching here, focus here. This is a normal thing. This is how it is supposed to be. And then you can start creating a language and description for this comfortable state that you want to be in. And then I tell you that you need to be consistent. So if you feel that being totally consistent seems a bit, wow, will I really be able to do that? The more times you use it, the more times you actually stop the pain, the discomfort, and use the technique, the faster it will work. So if you can imagine that if this is in the beginning, when thing happens, when a sudden neuropathic pain strikes you, if you are able to do the technique every minute, every 15 seconds, whatever, how often you need to do it in the beginning, then your brain will immediately understand that, oh, this was not the way to do. And the need for repetition will drop, right? So the more consistent you are able to be in the beginning, the longer time it will be before you need to use the technique again. I wish I could tell you that if you're consistent, it will go away forever. It doesn't. At least not for me. And I have just accepted that my central nervous system is totally unpredictable. But using the technique makes it go away for a while. Sometimes for a day, sometimes for weeks, for months. So it is really worth the effort. So the more consistent you are able to be, the sooner you will have created a new pathway, the right pathway in your brain, and that will be your default response, and it will be easier over time. I really hope that my description of how I use these cognitive mental techniques for pain management, that it will be useful for you, for inspiration. Maybe I can create a belief in you that it is possible. For sometimes just knowing that someone has been able to do something will reduce your fear of failure. So hopefully this will work for you as well. And remember, having to use pain medication, having to use some sort of help, medical help, external things to help you, that is completely okay, because the unpredictability of a damaged central nervous system and the different ways that a chronic disease will occur in different persons, it's impossible to say that this is the right way. But I know that this technique has been helping a lot of people, and if it can help you, it will be really wonderful. If you like this video, you can click on subscribe and get notifications when I publish the next one. You can also go to playlist and see what other videos I have that might be relevant for you. And by the way, I am Elin. I had my first MS attack in 1986. Since then, I have had 2 kids, I have run a successful business for 25 years, and I accomplished the black belt in Taekwondo 2 years after my diagnosis. Now I am really affected by MS, but I'm living a good life, and that is mainly because of mental training and physical training. I share my experiences on my webpage, and you can find me on Instagram and YouTube. And here you can find the first videos in this series. I do my YouTube channel in both Norwegian and English, so you can find different kind of videos in both languages.